Life already felt challenging for anyone trapped in the monotonous routine of a 9-to-5 job. The situation became even more unbearable when the person in charge acted solely as a supervisor, showing no other qualities beyond their title. The man was like a barking dog, his knowledge limited to raising his voice at those who worked for him. Jin Song had recently begun to observe strange system windows peering before her eyes without warning. The scene subtly suggested that something was about to happen soon. A sudden outbreak of zombies swept across the world, plunging society into chaos. Despite the pressures he faced at work, with his boss constantly chattering, he found himself too busy to give any real thought to the strange notifications from another world. The sole thread holding his sanity together comes from the gentle acts of compassion he receives. His female coworker demonstrates it to him. He frequently considered giving up. However, as artificial intelligence began to dominate remote work opportunities, joblessness soared to unprecedented levels. With few alternatives available, he found himself with limited choices to rely on. At that moment, things began to take a turn for the worse. Even during the height of summer, the atmosphere remained unchanged. Snowflakes started to drift down over every corner of the world. A bizarre event occurred, one that all scientific explanation. The situation starts to become serious. Stumbles upon a shocking scene. A coworker is devouring the remains of another colleague. At that instant, Jin Song understood he was in serious trouble.
Lately, I've had a strong addiction to watching manhwa and manga recap videos. Every single day, I find myself binging one after another, losing hours and days doing absolutely nothing productive. And honestly, it's getting out of hand. So, maybe we can make these viral videos too. I mean, look at the views, the growth, the community these creators are building. It looks simple, right? But that's a trap. You go down this endless rabbit hole spending money, losing sleep, hiring editors and writers from Fiverr and Upwork and still feel like you've been robbed. Because don't forget how emotional the YouTube algorithm can be with making videos go viral. It's unpredictable, especially when the market's saturated, competition's relentless, and somehow other creators are dropping 10-hour videos daily while you're stuck trying to finish one. That's when I realized something had to change. So, I built the solution, the Webtoon Narrative Suite, a complete one-click system that handles everything from cropping, script narration, text-to-speech, image processing, and full video generation in one smooth process. Save money, reduce hours of work, and have a tool that only gives you straight results. Click on the link down below and experience it for yourself. And if you want even more tools to supercharge your YouTube recap journey, visit my Ko-Fi and Patreon pages where I drop weekly new tools designed to keep you ahead as AI continues to steal our jobs. So tap in now before you get left behind.
His coworker, now transformed into a zombie, lunged after him, leaving him no choice but to flee desperately to survive. He notices a chair positioned close to him. He seized the object, readying himself to protect against any threat. To the narrator's utter astonishment, the following scene revealed the boy appearing on the wall's opposite side, as though he had somehow crossed through it. This unexpected moment left the narrator questioning whether reality itself had glitched. Despite everything, coming face to face with an actual zombie leaves him deeply shaken. The shock overwhelms him, and his legs buckle until he collapses onto the ground. Without warning, his phone began to ring. A public announcement warned that a virus known as rabies was causing people to mutate, urging everyone to remain inside their homes for safety. They struggled to take in everything that was happening, felt absolutely convinced that no bizarre virus with a name like rabies could ever transform people into real-life zombies. It seemed clear that something much more mysterious and unfathomable was unfolding. He scrolls through his social media feed, noticing that people are posting about zombies attacking their neighborhoods and about unexpected snowfall blanketing the area, even though it is the middle of summer. At that moment, he suddenly understands. He begins to suspect that the mysterious system windows appearing before him might be linked to the recent disasters. He looks for details about the status windows, but finds nothing helpful during his search. The situation deteriorates further as his phone suddenly flickers and displays nothing but static. Suddenly, the connection cuts off completely. A sense of hopelessness slowly starts to settle over the scene. His thoughts drifted in a fog, leaving him unable to process what was happening. His body became rigid as the air around him grew unnaturally cold. At the moment, his greatest challenge isn't the hordes of flesh-eating zombies lurking nearby. Instead, it's the bitter cold threatening his survival. He clings to the hope that help will arrive before it's too late. He chooses to save his phone's battery, which is at 83%, hoping it will help him later. He moves through the building with careful steps, making sure to stay alert as he investigates his surroundings. He tried to steer clear of zombies, focusing first on finding warm clothes and something to eat to stay alive. Fortunately, he comes across a set of clothes he immediately puts on the item he finds in the drawer. The next topic to be addressed was food. Before much time had passed, he successfully gathered a bag along with some extra clothes, water, and food to restore his energy. He could not determine to whom the bag belonged. He feels thankful that someone abandoned it. The following task required him to search for a suitable weapon he could use to protect himself. After searching the area for a while, he eventually comes across a set of reliable golf clubs that seem to have been left there just for him to discover. Given the limited provisions at his disposal, survival for approximately 3 days seemed possible. This raised a chilling uncertainty. Would help arrive before the relentless cold and hunger claimed his life? The city streets teemed with zombies and terrifying creatures lurking in every corner. Due to the fierce blizzard, helicopters would have great difficulty reaching his location. Should help not arrive before 7 days pass, he faces nothing but certain disaster. The temperature continued to fall at an alarming rate, making the situation even more dire. A new system window suddenly materializes in front of his eyes. As he browses through the options in the system shop, a variety of items catch his attention. Among these, he notices that winter clothing is available. He longs for it with an intense yearning. He lacks sufficient system currency. Without warning, the sound of footsteps resonated from somewhere close by. He swiftly leaves his warm and quiet spot. Prepared for whatever might come next, the character positioned themselves to face the approaching threat. Holding the golf club firmly, he prepared himself for the next move. He races ahead, determined to locate the danger before it has a chance to discover him. Right as he was about to swing the golf club down with force, it became clear that the person was only his colleague. The introduction proceeds without any awkwardness, as the two are already acquainted. Jin Song is actually this man's senior in their workplace. After taking their seats, shares the story of how he arrived at this situation, mentioning that he got stranded in the cafeteria during his break. Upon hearing disturbing noises coming from outside, he quickly secured the door. Later, when he made his attempt to flee, he charged forward, shoving past the undead and forcing his way toward the emergency staircase. Realized with disappointment that this information was not what he had wanted. The man before him offered nothing useful, and to make matters worse, seemed eager to take advantage of carefully gathered supplies. Quickly denies the request, pretending he has little to offer. Sometime afterward, as the boy picks up the water bottle to fill it again, his junior reached out and took hold of his hand. His demeanor shifts abruptly, turning from approachable to wary. Cold sweat beads on his forehead, unfazed by the icy air. It appears he has caught on to deception and is silently pressing him to admit the truth. Fortunately, no incidents occurred. Still feels a lingering sense of uneasiness, even though nothing has happened so far. He questioned the reason behind the other man's excessive sweating. While uncertainty lingered for some, he had already recognized clear signs that the man was infected. As soon as he transformed into a zombie, the man attempted to sneak up and attack Jin Song from behind, just as expected. The boy quickly responded by slamming his water bottle into the attacker's face. After that, she delivered a powerful kick to him, causing him to. The impact sends them hurtling toward the nearest wall. A short while earlier, he had been speaking just like any ordinary person, yet now he had transformed into a raging beast in the blink of an eye. Faced with a fight for survival, Jin Song acts without a moment's pause. He grips his golf club tightly, pulling it back before bringing it down with force, striking the zombie squarely on the head. He continues moving forward, much like someone might react to seeing a cockroach, ensuring that it was thoroughly flattened and finished for good. Made his first kill since the apocalypse began, and even though the air was icy cold, anxiety and adrenaline caused sweat to bead on his forehead. Despite the effort, the outcome proved worthwhile, as his system reacted instantly to his victory, preparing to grant him a fitting reward. After acquiring his very first coin, quietly recited the words to activate his status window. He then began to examine the various items available in the store. He comes to understand that the coins serve as currency to buy those items. What excites him most is discovering that he receives almost a coin for every zombie he defeats. Although it might seem impressive at first glance, the young man found himself filled with anxiety, believing he had to put everything on the line just to defeat a single zombie and receive only a single, insignificant coin as his reward. Lost in a tangle of his own thoughts, Jin Song's focus abruptly shifts. A clear bite mark stood out on the zombie's wrist. The sight before him validates his fears, forcing him to accept that his nightmare has become reality. In the following scene, the boy wrapped himself in a soft blanket, coming to the unsettling realization that appearances could no longer be trusted, and that even those who seemed alright might not be safe. While enduring his own personal torment, found solace in the comfort of his cigarette pack. The threat of lung cancer seemed insignificant compared to the danger of zombies lurking nearby. Still, a deep sense of uncertainty continued to trouble him. He considers searching for supplies, but a terrifying roar interrupts his thoughts. Curious and alarmed, he cautiously peers out the window to see what is happening outside. The boy noticed a lone survivor struggling desperately to break free from the swarm of enemies. In one harrowing scene, a group of ravenous zombies overpowers him, leaving him severely injured and vulnerable. He remembered the moment his former girlfriend ended their relationship. Overcome with terror, he instinctively steps away. He suddenly became aware of the trouble he was truly in. Time slips by, leaving stuck indoors with no way out. By the third day, desperation sets in. His phone battery has drained to a mere 3%. And his choices are quickly vanishing. To make matters worse, Bro faces his own crisis. Only 4 chocolate bars stand between him and hunger. Because of what he has seen through the window, has discovered something important. Attempts to flee from the zombies had proven futile, as each person was relentlessly pursued and captured without exception. Despite the overwhelming chances stacked against him, the boy realizes that his only hope of staying alive and avoiding starvation depends on getting himself moving. He secures his bag, preparing for what lies ahead. Began to take down the barricades, realizing that remaining in this place would only increase the risk to his own safety. At this moment, Jin Sung believes his greatest chance to stay alive depends on finding others who might still be in the building. He hopes that working together with fellow survivors will increase their chances of making it through. With this plan in mind, he decides to focus his search on the 6th floor. She questioned whether had actually sealed off the entrance as he claimed. Without warning the boy, during the meeting, someone noticed a sound. The character moved toward the window. He felt different only when he gazed out the window. The biting cold surrounded everything, offering no relief. Darkness stretched across the landscape. Despite the darkness, a faint glow appeared in the distance. The situation suggested that someone else had operated the generator to activate the lights. This revelation made it clear that someone else must still be alive somewhere inside the building. Aware that the lights could flicker off at any second, hurries forward. He hurried downstairs, fully aware that his survival depended on locating the other person before it was too late. While making his way down, considers where the survivor might be found. He figures the most likely hiding spots are either the management office or the security room. Fortunately, both rooms sit on the 1st floor, making it simple for him to move between them. The lower levels felt even colder than the rest. Despite valuing safety more than his personal ease, he decided to act with caution. The boy quietly removed his shoes, hoping to move without a sound. When he reached the 6th floor, he gathered his courage to see if his claims were true. Carefully, he peered inside. He noticed that the entrance was truly blocked, confirming that the man had been telling the truth. A bright expression spread across his face as hope flickered within him. If the building remained untouched by outside forces, there was a chance that other survivors could still be inside. At that moment, Jin Song makes up his mind to depart from the 6th floor, turning his attention back to his objective of reaching the 1st floor. Upon reaching the building, he intended to verify several things. To begin with, he discovered that the zombies hadn't managed to make their way to the higher levels. However, he remained aware that the 1st floor posed a serious threat, as those grotesque monsters could be hiding nearby. With a tentative grip on the door handle, the boy carefully eased the door open just enough to sneak a cautious glance inside. They desperately hoped and pleaded that nothing would happen. The truth, however, is far more grim. Crimson stains cover the surroundings, evidence of violence everywhere one looks. As anticipated, zombies stumbled and lurched about, acting with the mindless aggression that defined their kind. Facing a massive swarm, the boy found himself in a perilous and life-threatening predicament. He was truly trapped inside, unable to escape with such a massive crowd of zombies blocking the way. Fortunately, the undead remained unaware of the higher levels, gathering only on the ground floor and leaving the upper stories undisturbed. Despite the current situation, worries that the barrier keeping them safe might not withstand the pressure for much longer. Seeing this as his only chance to escape, he moved silently toward where the management office was located. Just moments after they reached the office, comes across a distressing and heartbreaking scene. A man's lifeless body lay before him, the same friendly neighbor who used to offer a warm greeting each morning. The brutal, unnatural cold had claimed his life, leaving him to succumb to hypothermia. Wanting to allow the man some peace, he made the choice to leave him undisturbed. Jin closes his eyes and gives a faint smile. He silently mourned his lost friend, hoping others would pay their respects in the comments. Despite the obstacles, Jin Song pressed on, determined to make his way to the security room. He searched the area, wishing to discover someone hidden nearby, but remained alert for any traps that the survivor might have left behind. Much like his approach with the barricades, the boy's top priority became showing everyone that he was not just an unthinking zombie, but was truly innocent. Shifting his focus once more to the unusual individuals prowled nearby, drawing curious glances from those passing through. Notices that despite the zombies being completely blind, they react quickly to any noise they hear. He gently knocked on the door to show the person inside that he was just a human being. The following moment featured a courageous decision that required complete trust. Jin Song extended his hand at a measured pace, his fingers inching toward the door handle. As soon as he pushes the door open, a sudden force leaps out and grabs at him. The figure before him turned out to be just just an ordinary man wielding a stick, not a zombie as he first feared. Fortunately, the boy was able to protect himself by skillfully brandishing the legendary Infinity Golf Stick of Destruction, known for its unmatched power. The noise created by their confrontation unsettled, as it threatened to draw the attention of nearby zombies. At the same time, the boy with glasses recoiled in surprise at the unexpected sight before him. Fortunately, the zombies remained unaware of the situation. The survivor hurriedly pulled the boy into the room, making sure to slam the door closed behind them. The stage was set for a fierce competition, pitting a skilled golfer against a master of wooden staff techniques. They each recognized that the other was human, yet neither was willing to put down their weapon. Described his circumstances, mentioning that the sound of the emergency generator had drawn him to the area in hopes of finding anyone who might have survived. He then presents his badge, revealing his role as the assistant manager of a sales team. Although he has managed to endure so far, he can't help but fear that this person might eventually end up like Sung, known for always wearing glasses, turned out to be another assistant manager working with the development team. Seeing how carefully kept himself covered made Jin-sung feel uneasy. He suspected that Sung could be hiding bite marks, but noticed that the boy didn't seem nervous at all and was simply bundling up against the chill. The boy surveyed the area, and his attention settled on the backpack the other guy was carrying. He then turns his gaze toward the wooden stick. The ginseng, once doubtful and deep in thought, suddenly experiences a moment of realization. It recognizes that those affected by the infection typically display unusual hunger, but the man's careful management of his food shows he is unaffected and behaving as expected. Extended his hand in a gesture of peace, but the other man grew tense, raising his weapon defensively toward him. The boy comes to the unsettling conclusion that Sung might suspect him of attempting to steal from his bag, even though that was never his intention. Jin Song, searching for a solution to the problem, silently returns his golf club to its place and signals his willingness to give in. He demonstrates that he is not guilty by choosing this approach. As he considers other possible options, his mind races with potential solutions. He goes so far as to extend a cigarette to the other manager, silently suggesting they share a smoke. He extended his hand toward his pocket. He pulled out his pack and extended it, silently inviting the other man to take one. Once more, the person expressed curiosity about telling untruths. At first, the boy with glasses approaches the situation carefully. After a moment of hesitation, he slowly brings his weapon down. After considering the situation, he nodded in agreement and courteously inquired whether anyone would mind if he lit a cigarette. In the following scene, the two characters sit close together, finding comfort in each other's presence. Although a swarm of zombies lurks menacingly beyond the walls, threatening their safety, they find a small solace in sharing some cigarettes. Jokingly notes that his only sustenance for the whole day has been a chocolate bar and a cigarette. The other guy then begins searching through his bag. As a result, this realization leads Jin Xiang to conclude that the man must have taken some belongings from the lounge. The young man pulls out a block of instant noodles and snaps it in half. He suggested to his new companion that eating at a slower pace and chewing thoroughly would be best. The boy eagerly took the offered food and began eating with enthusiasm. As he enjoyed his meal, he initiated a friendly conversation. Sung's actions drew curious attention, as people wondered how the development team's manager managed to acquire some food. It turned out that Sung had gathered whatever he could find, making sure not to empty the entire fridge. A shared joke brought laughter to both of them. Soon after, the two of them stood shivering in the chilly air as the development manager described what was happening upstairs. The situation appeared bleak. As he thought back to the earlier events, he recalled the sense of confinement he shared with his coworker, which had compelled them to divide their limited food supplies. His friend urged them to hurry, but he wanted to stay and hope that help would arrive. Ultimately, Sung's friend fell victim to the zombies due to his inability to wait, forcing Sung to survive alone. After hearing the explanation, the boy understands that the second floor holds more than just a handful of zombies. Fortunately, based on the other person's observation, there are only 4 up there. Ultimately, he abandoned 2 companions, driven by his fear of losing control. As he slipped away, he moved cautiously and deliberately, using various tricks to draw the zombies' attention elsewhere. Found himself genuinely amazed upon learning that this person had gotten away from 4 zombies without a single scratch. Next, he discovers that Sung was actually the one responsible for activating the emergency generator. The group managed to obtain an extra-long cable so they could keep their essential devices powered up. By now, the boy was beginning to wonder whether any of their gadgets held any real significance anymore. Sung feels a surge of surprise upon realizing that the other person openly confesses to not having used the internet. The boy mentioned his inability to find a signal, while the manager of the development team explained that the satellite internet was functioning without any issues. Amusingly, the comic makes mention of Elon Musk's recent initiative, explaining that this technology is precisely why internet connectivity remains unaffected during the apocalypse. Explained that even though some servers were down, the internet was still functional enough for them to use it. The flood of new details overwhelmed him, leaving him stunned by possibilities he never imagined. Surprised and uncertain, he struggled to process what he was hearing. Staying true to his easygoing nature, Sung noticed his phone was fully charged and kindly offered Jin Sung the chance to power up his own device. Soon after, access the satellite network and that everything was functioning smoothly. Sung's friend felt deeply grateful for all the lessons he had learned, expressing heartfelt thanks. However, Sung, ever modest in his role as king, refused to accept any praise for his guidance. Their hopeful moment unfolds. The group began to panic as soon as they noticed the lights flickering off. The evidence made it clear that the emergency generator had completely failed as well. Wonders aloud about the other boy's intentions, curious about what he plans to do next. He responds by saying that he plans to remain right where he is. Sensing the underlying message, the boy understood that Sung was subtly urging him to go away. Deep down, he knew Sung's real motivation was simply a desire to protect himself and keep his surroundings secure. Allowing someone else to use up his supplies would only make things harder for him. Meanwhile, also believes that working together would not be advantageous, since their perspectives are so different. One person felt eager to leave, but the other preferred to remain where it was safe. Wanting to avoid any arguments, the boy quietly took the initiative and chose to depart on his own. Before setting off, he made sure everything was in order. His friend chooses to present him with a final parting gift before he sets out on his journey. He passed over a flashlight and an extra battery, knowing he had more than enough supplies for himself. Jin Song felt thrilled by this new opportunity and carefully placed the items into his bag, believing they would benefit him in the future. In exchange, the boy cheerfully hands over a few cigarettes, inviting the other man to savor them. The two go their separate ways, leaving each other with a sense of mutual respect and understanding. Wishing one another the best, they looked forward to seeing each other again in the near future. After making his decision, Jin Song steps out into the open air. He returned to the place where the outcasts lingered, knowing he needed to move quickly before the electricity failed completely. The character observed that the door stood ajar. The boy carefully slips by the zombies, making sure not to draw their attention as he moves along. He gently closed the door behind him, relieved to have escaped immediate danger, and began to weigh his next steps. He realized that heading to the basement might be a viable option, since his car was parked there and could offer a quick escape from the threat. Despite understanding that he would eventually need to exit the building, he worried about whether now was the safest moment to do so. Leaving prematurely could prove just as risky as staying inside for too long, and this uncertainty weighed heavily on his mind. Decided to head upstairs, determined to collect more information from the company as his next objective. He soon began to devise a plan to break free. At this moment, the lights suddenly cut out, plunging everything into darkness and making him move with heightened alertness. Keeping calm, he searches through his belongings until he locates his flashlight. Pries the object open, he moved upstairs with careful precision, fully aware that the zombies might have changed their locations while he was gone. Moving with deliberate caution, the boy successfully reaches the 6th floor. At this spot, he begins to sense that a zombie might be nearby, even though he knows it's risky. He had already traveled so far that retreat was no longer an option for him. He gathered his determination, his powerful golf club, and stretched his arms forward. Meanwhile, a single battered zombie struggled up the stairs, its body showing signs of previous battles. The young man stands tall, outshining those around him while remaining calm and collected. Without warning, he caught sight of the woman everyone whispered about as the queen of mismatched beauty. The character shifts nervously, anxiety evident in their restless movements. The boy instinctively ducked just as the zombie transformed with astonishing agility, leaping at him with the force of a superhero. Approaching with an awkward, hesitant stance, the man brought down a powerful swing, striking her head forcefully. She was left sprawled and motionless, as if she had been flattened against the wall like a lifeless insect. That still wouldn't be enough to end her life. It repeatedly attempts to use the same attack over and over. The boy struck her face with a powerful force, unleashing his overwhelming strength. The swing struck her with such force that she tumbled down the stairs, and blood began to collect where she landed. At this moment, the man appears desperate, silently pleading for her to remain on the ground and not rise once more. Despite everything, this relentless zombie somehow managed to wriggle and move about. His golf club, badly warped from repeated strikes, glinted in his hands as he silently pleaded for luck. Gathering his courage, he swung one last time, determined to finish off the zombie once and for all. Relief washed over him as the ordeal finally ended. The system granted him an extra coin, giving him the chance to keep more of his savings. He was encouraged to buy something from the shop. Jin Song struggled to catch his breath, clearly worn out, and his favorite golf club now lay before him, broken beyond repair. The champion who defeated the zombie foes could finally relax, feeling reassured that everyone admired their bravery. The boy, still angry, chose to hold onto the weapon, planning to save it for another time. His attention shifted entirely to examining the zombie. Curiosity gnawed at him as he tried to figure out the source of the strange occurrence. Soon after, he approached the door leading to the rooftop and found it securely locked. This discovery suggested that the zombie must have entered from a different level of the building. The narration calculation suggested that danger could reach even the 7th floor. He moved forward in silence. The boy exhales, feeling reassured as he notices that everything on the 7th floor appears to be in order. He paused for a moment to gulp down some water. The memory of the zombies' brutal speed flashed through their mind. The creature now moved with a speed that surpassed anything it had shown as a human, seeming more like a wild beast than anything else. Outside, he spots 2 zombies lurking nearby. The sight alarms him. If these undead creatures are as quick as the last one he encountered, facing both at once would make his chances of survival slim. His effective plan involved separating his challengers so he could face each of them individually. Without warning, he reaches for his phone, curiosity tugging at him to see if any fresh updates about the zombies have surfaced. He finds himself honestly questioning whether some sort of new zombie update or change has occurred. As he browses, his eyes land on an online forum known as the Survivors Gallery. In various regions, numerous individuals shared posts describing the unbearable cold weather, each one lamenting their own miserable circumstances. Rather than focusing attention on a recent finding about the zombies, feeling let down, shifts his attention to the clues he has uncovered himself. He realizes with certainty that the zombies rely heavily on sound to locate their targets, as their other senses are notably weak. It was common knowledge that these creatures could only be stopped by destroying their heads in a violent manner. Everyone also understood that a bite would transform a person into a zombie. These truths were so widely recognized that no one even questioned them anymore. Since the forum remained silent with no fresh updates, grew increasingly certain that the government had fallen apart, and he realized that no help would be arriving to save them. The harsh truth forced the remaining survivors to fend for themselves in a world that had completely fallen apart. By the 5th day of their struggle to stay alive, the cold had become harsher than ever, pushing the boy to his limits. He faced the danger of falling ill, and in a place like this, that almost certainly meant he would not survive. Realizing that remaining inflexible is not making things better, the boy chooses to start his warm-up routine by doing a set of jumping jacks. After working out, he inevitably felt his stomach begin to rumble with hunger. Although he was usually content with just half a piece of chocolate, the current situation forced him to consume more in order to stay alive. While chewing his snack bar, he makes up his mind to rest for a while. He removed his shoes once more, hoping to make his journey easier by carrying less weight. His shoes made loud sounds with every step, so carrying them served no real purpose for him. At this moment, survival depended on finding something to eat. Relying on the details shared by manager Sung, he remembers that there ought to be some leftover food remaining in the lounge. The boy believed the item might be hidden in the bag belonging to the coworker who lost his life while attempting to run away, a thought that brought him no comfort given the tragic outcome. To start, he would need to face 4 zombies alone, a situation that definitely raised some worries. He couldn't simply snatch the bag and slip away without anyone noticing. The most sensible, and possibly the sole, solution in this scenario was to defeat each opponent individually and claim the prize. Began to follow his targets closely, eventually finding a lone zombie inside the first room. There was someone else in the second room. A third person was present inside the business team's meeting room. However, the most suspicious aspect was tracking down the last zombie, which seemed to have vanished completely. Since hadn't seen any bodies while heading for the exit, he realized that the last zombie had to be hiding somewhere nearby. With a crowd of hostile opponents surrounding him, he realized he would need the right weapons to deal with them effectively. Someone was inspecting one of the rooms. Jin Song realizes the coast is clear and makes up his mind to slip inside quietly. A quick look around the room revealed to him that, although there was no food left, plenty of other supplies remained. He could already hear the sound of a zombie shuffling around outside. The boy grips the flashlight in his mouth. Reaching for a cup, they prepared to create the perfect diversion. She throws it far away, announced that his hunt was about to begin, and as soon as the cup struck the ground, the zombie darted forward at an astonishing pace, driven by the noise, unaware that the boy had been anticipating this exact moment to make his move. The zombie shifted its gaze to the left, its face clearly showing a realization that it was in serious trouble. Brought the golf club down hard, striking the creature directly in the face. It was destroyed in a single moment. The noise draws the attention of the nearby zombie. However, the boy swiftly slams the door closed, stopping them from forcing their way in. He managed to eliminate his initial objective without any trouble. Seemed overjoyed, his excitement almost overflowing. He soon lost track of the fact that a zombie was still in the room with him. Suddenly, the infected creature seized his foot, showing that it was far from lifeless. A jolt of unexpected feeling caused the hero to spin around, gripped by fear. He looked down and saw a zombie dragging itself along the ground, its bony fingers wrapped tightly around his leg as it snarled with the ferocity of a wild animal. Craving a taste, the creature darted ahead, jaws stretched as wide as they could go. Song remained rooted to the spot, utterly stunned and unable to move. The flashlight falls out of his mouth. Instinct took over, causing them to collapse onto the floor. He forcefully brought his foot down on the zombie's skull, trapping it against the ground as thick drool continued to spill from its mouth onto the floor. The creature extended its arms, reaching for for him once more, but he quickly leaped away, his growing annoyance with the circumstances evident. Without hesitation, the hero brought his golf club down with force, shattering the zombie's skull. The creature was quickly dispatched. Its existence ended in an instant. Once everything had come to a close, he remains frozen next to the spreading blood, gripping his head in disbelief as he struggles to comprehend the recent events. Before he even has a chance to recover, an unexpected hand smacks against the glass beside him, jolting him out of his thoughts and bringing him swiftly back to the present moment. He whirls around, startled, and catches sight of a crowd of zombies forcing their way in. Right then, he realizes with a jolt that even more of these creatures are still out there. Showing a complete lack of concern for cleanliness, the boy clenched the grimy flashlight between his teeth once more, his resolve hardening as he prepared to finish the task before any others could arrive. Upon entering the following room, he forcefully swings his golf club, shattering the glass of the window. The sudden interruption takes the two zombies inside by complete surprise. The protagonist quickly flings a tiny metal item to the other side of the room. Both zombies immediately swivel their heads toward the sound. One zombie darts off in pursuit, while the other stays rooted in place. The situation left them uncertain and unable to understand what was going on. Song pointed his flashlight straight at the figure that remained motionless, and from that moment everything changed. At the same time, the zombie with the backpack sprinted frantically throughout the room, leaping over the desk in pursuit. They soon discovered that the mysterious object was simply a spoon. He spun back and moved forward. The character harnesses the power of fusion and dashes forward with all their might. The hero launched a powerful kick at the man's back, knocking him off balance and causing him to slam into the ground. Without hesitation, he swung his golf club overhead and brought it down forcefully, striking the unfortunate creature and dispatching it instantly. The last blow destroys his weapon beyond repair, as the system takes note of the event. He managed to collect an additional 4 coins. He felt a bit disheartened after losing his weapon. He kneels down next to the zombie, searching through its belongings for anything useful. Song carefully loosened the straps at the back. He hoists it onto his shoulders, a sense of satisfaction washing over him as he notices the real heft it possesses. His sense of relief fades quickly as he becomes aware that, unarmed, he is helpless and reliant on others for rescue. He quickly pivots, intending to exit the room without delay. Just before stepping out, he pauses, reconsidering his actions. After investing so much energy to reach this point, he realizes it would make more sense to search the area thoroughly. Memories surface of Sung explaining that the assistant manager had taken refuge in the break room and likely hadn't inspected the rest of the office. Determined, he begins checking each desk individually, and his spirits rise when he discovers there was a collection of dietary supplements and a portable charger. Taking advantage of that brief moment of good fortune, they pressed on. He moves deeper into the hallway, choosing to investigate the Office of Development Team 2 next. Suddenly, the sound of a loud thump reverberates from behind him. For a brief instant, he considers whether the sound might be caused by another zombie, but then he recalls that he is now unarmed. He swiftly chooses to escape, determined to survive and face challenges again in the future. The protagonist quietly entered a nearby room and crouched out of sight behind a desk. Clutching his backpack tightly to his chest, he gradually began to regain his composure. He quietly reflects that, despite the office's tense atmosphere, there is an odd sense of comfort in knowing he is secure there. As reality gradually returned, he chose to rummage through his backpack, curious to discover what treasures he had found. Once everything had been poured out, he writes down a list that includes 3 bags of snacks, a few packs of ramen, some cookies, and a can of Coke that every gamer considers essential. The protagonist bursts into wild, uncontrollable laughter, their amusement echoing with a hint of madness. He shut his eyes calmly, feeling reassured that, with the supplies he had gathered and access to clean water, he would be able to survive for 30 days. His body began to tremble. The chill returned to him once the surge of adrenaline faded, and the damp, blood-stained socks on his feet only made him feel more frozen. Wanting to clean himself up, he took off his socks and set them aside to dry before continuing. He wiped the blood from his feet, irritation flickering across his face from the icy water, as though the chill was more bothersome than the chaos unfolding around him. Despite his initial confidence, he becomes motionless as soon as he spots unusual markings on his leg. His complexion drained of color as surprise washed over him. He remembers how the zombie at the beginning had grabbed his leg, and a sense of relief washes over him as he realizes the marks aren't from a bite, so he won't be transforming into one of them. Still feeling uncertain, he scrolls through the feed until he stumbles upon someone had uploaded a message online, explaining that a person was doing well several days after receiving a scratch. He brightens right away and rests his weight against the... With a sense of relief, they leaned over the basin, although his troubles are hardly behind him, especially now that he has cleaned his feet. If he didn't manage to warm his hands, the biting cold would soon cause frostbite. The boy remembered something and brought up the shop menu. The previous time, a selection of winter clothing had been offered. As he glanced at the pricey accessories, annoyance bubbled up inside him. To him, selling each piece seemed completely unreasonable. People noticed that buying items like gloves or shoes shoes cost as much as purchasing a full set of clothes, and even simple things were being sold one at a time for 3 coins each. Yearning for just a bit of comfort, he chooses to purchase the boots before anything else. The objects appeared before him, almost as if he truly were inside a video game. He lifted them with a look of astonishment. He slid the shoes onto his feet to test the fit, and discovered that they matched his size exactly, as if they had been crafted specifically for him. He soon understands that wearing only boots does little to protect him from the freezing temperatures. He continued browsing the shop, hoping to discover additional items. After spending some time scrolling aimlessly through countless listings, he received a notification that instantly caught his attention, filling him with hope that this could finally be the item he was searching for. He exchanges a single coin for a heat pack and then places it carefully. He rubbed his feet together, hoping the movement would help them regain their warmth. Despite his grumbling about the high price, he still thinks that exchanging a single coin for just one heat pack seems far too costly. He continued to find solace in the gentle warmth, allowing it to ease his worries and bring him comfort. He held on to the belief that he would manage to make it through the ordeal. By the time a full week had passed, the protagonist discovers that the building's water supply has now been completely shut down. He hurried over to check the water bottles he had stored away for emergencies. He discovers that only 2 liters remain, estimating that this amount should be enough to sustain him for another 3 or 4 days. He slumps onto the countertop by the window, his mind swirling with thoughts about how problems somehow keep piling up. Just as he begins to notice even the faintest sign of hope, the protagonist picked up his phone and began scrolling, searching for the latest updates about the zombie situation. He comes across a message from someone announcing their decision to take a chance and go to the supermarket. An unidentified person wonders aloud whether he is actually leaving. He responds with assurance, mentioning that he has already departed and will update again if he survives, prompting the anonymous user to enthusiastically encourage him. Once he put his phone down, the hero couldn't help but notice a growing sadness as he watched the number of posts steadily decrease with each passing day. This meant that almost no one had managed to survive. He approaches the window to check if his doubts are correct and notices that there are very few people visible outside. Despite this, he remains optimistic, believing that others might be concealed out of sight. By the 8th day, he glanced at his phone and noticed a message from an unknown user, inquiring if the adventurer had made it back from the supermarket. Despite waiting an entire day, there were still no replies beneath his post. Believing the adventurer hadn't survived, the anonymous user silently offered their condolences. Song felt a surge of frustration, but underneath his irritation, he appreciated that his remaining supplies of food and water were still enough to sustain him. He would survive if he could only escape the building. His biggest challenge was surviving alone in the outside world, so he understood that seeking out other survivors was necessary if he wanted to form alliances. At that moment, he realizes a new challenge. Without a decent weapon, searching through various floors for supplies while battling zombies is nearly impossible. Now, with only his final golf club left, a fragile tool unlikely to survive more than a few swings at the undead, his situation grows even more desperate. He brought up the status screen, his eyes landing on the zombie skull-crushing hammer that demanded 5 coins, far more than he possessed, leaving him feeling powerless. He glanced at his limited funds and shut the screen, deciding that although the hammer seemed incredible, its high cost wasn't worth it when he could spend that money on extra winter clothes and heat packs instead. The boy then shifts his concentration to the 4th floor, determined to find anything that might be of use. However, an unexpected sight soon catches his attention. A wave of uncertainty sweeps over him, leaving him motionless and puzzled. Blood stains every surface in the scene, with not a soul present anywhere. He noticed that the bloodstains gave off a foul odor, unmistakably the smell of zombies. It strikes him as odd because there are no zombie bodies scattered about, leaving him puzzled about what could have taken place in that area. As he attempts to open the door to the executive room, he discovers that it is securely locked. Believing that someone might be concealed within, Song leans closer and rests his ear on the door, listening intently in silence. After experiencing complete silence, he brings his golf club down forcefully, shattering the handle with a powerful swing. The character then delivered a powerful kick with their heel, causing the door to fly open with force. He discovers not survivors, but a heap of bodies with no fewer than 10 zombies piled on top of one another. Upon witnessing the scene, he wonders to himself what sort of creature could be responsible for such an act. He wondered if anyone in his organization had ever possessed such incredible strength. He grasped what was happening and decided to focus on turning that individual into an ally. After spending a considerable amount of time looking through the offices and discovering nothing of value, he comes to the conclusion that everything useful has already been removed from the building. Realization strikes him as he notices that someone had already removed all the items in advance. The sheer attention to detail suggests to him that only someone with a meticulous nature could have managed such a feat, and the thought crosses his mind that perhaps more than one individual was involved. Uncertainty nags at him, making him wonder whether the culprits might still be lurking somewhere within the building. At that moment, he spots a piece of paper wedged tightly within the water dispenser. answer. Within the note, the author praised his progress in making it to the 4th floor, then expressed regret for having used up all available resources. The message suggested he shouldn't bother searching the area further, as it would be a waste of time. The author also cautioned him about the executive director's office, revealing that every dead body had been stacked inside that particular room. A note mentioned that someone had placed a collection of skirts inside a cabinet for anyone who required them. At the end, a firm caution was issued, urging everyone to stay away from the 5th floor under any circumstances. The author described his intention to escape to an island along the western shore, hoping for a more peaceful existence. He also recorded the specific date and time in his message. This revelation struck the hero, who understood that arriving just 1 day sooner could have given him the chance to encounter the legendary figure in person. The author is revealed to be from the accounting department, who secretly wishes for a chance to meet the reader he cherishes. Upon reading the message, Song's memory flashes back to his colleague, the one he used to jokingly refer to as a secret agent. Suddenly, everything becomes clear to Song, as he realizes this explains how managed to fight off so many zombies by himself. As Song creased the paper, his eyes caught sight of a second note scrawled on the reverse side. The message revealed that had placed a present in the drawer meant for his wife. Song's excitement surges when the idea of a secret treasure crosses her mind. He hurried over to the drawer. They found nothing but a pair of solitary instant coffee packets. At that instant, he comes to understand that has played a clever trick on him. On the 10th day, Song settled beside the window, savoring a pie as she reread the note once more. He silently reflects on the unusual caution had given regarding the 5th floor. Song explained that the floor was likely to have few, if any, zombies, as it used to be the location of the CEO's office. He chooses not to dwell on the matter, reassuring himself that likely acted with a valid purpose. His mind wandered to the desolate landscape beyond, realizing that it had been a long while since he had encountered another living soul. As days continued to slip by, the chances of encountering a potential friend steadily diminished. He considered exploring the other floors, thinking about how he hadn't found anyone the previous day. As he remains in place, his mind weighs the different choices before him. Without warning, a sudden shaft of light illuminates his face. Song quickly comes to understand that the sound is actually a signal being sent by someone outside the building. He observed the man gesture toward an object, a wave of real happiness washing over him at the possibility that others had also survived. Song's curiosity was piqued right away, prompting him to lean in for a better look. As he did, he noticed the man raising a piece of paper, making it clear that the stranger was attempting to send him a message. A sudden inspiration crosses his mind, prompting him to rummage through his pockets. He took out his reliable phone and carefully zoomed in with its camera. His sharp instincts prove useful when he deciphers the message, discovering that other survivors remain in his building and are hoping he will join forces with them. The protagonist felt a surge of happiness at the possibility that others might have survived, yet he chose to direct his attention to the individuals residing on the 6th floor for the time being. He grabs his last golf club and decides to venture further into the surroundings. After some time had passed, he arrived at the 6th floor and was surprised to find the entrance unobstructed. He questioned whether others had already removed the debris, making the path clear for him. He reached out into the emptiness, his voice warm as he shared his name and hoped to find others, yet the silence remained unbroken by any reply. He moved further into the space. He notices that the room is in complete disarray, as though someone had frantically turned everything upside down in search of a missing item. The atmosphere unsettled him, filling his mind with uneasy thoughts about who might have come before. Suddenly, a zombie crept up behind him, attempting to catch him off guard. Fortunately, Song notices the threat just in time and swiftly leaps backward, preparing his weapon for defense. The zombie continued to overpower him, forcing him onto the ground and attempting to hold him there. As the creature loomed above him, its grimy saliva began to trickle down, splattering across his face. Driven by the urgent need to survive, the protagonist lashes out and delivers a powerful kick to its stomach. He managed to shove the zombie away, creating enough space for himself to stand up again. Seizing the opportunity, Song dashes ahead and lands a forceful blow knocked the zombie off its feet, slamming it onto the ground. The battle continues beyond this point, and there, the hero wastes no time and swiftly lifts a cabinet using all his strength. With a burst of power, he brought his weapon crashing onto the zombie's skull, finishing it off and sending it to rest alongside the others. The system promptly him of his reward, a single coin, though to him, the sound felt less like a prize and more like a somber toll marking another death. He scanned his surroundings, certain that survivors should have been present, and started to suspect that the man in the building opposite might not have told him the truth. At that moment, a sudden clicking sound caught his attention from somewhere close by. The sudden motion causes him to turn quickly, and in that moment, he starts to think that perhaps it had actually been the truth all along. He raised his voice, trying to reassure reassure whoever was inside that he meant no harm, but silence was the only response he received. He continued his efforts, explaining his reason for coming was to find partners, while the individual inside clung tightly to the door handle, clearly unwilling to release their grip. The protagonist kept the conversation light, casually sharing that he worked in the building's sales department. Receiving no answer, he finally prepared his club, determined to break the door down. Just as he is about to act, someone inside abruptly speaks up, inquiring whether he is Manager Song. Just then the door swings open, appeared unexpectedly, startling him, and her expression showed immense relief at finally encountering someone she recognized. After a while, the two of them sat indoors, reflecting on the recent events, recounted how, the previous night, a stranger had arrived at her doorstep, pleading for entry. However, she felt uneasy and decided not to open the door. Sensing her solitude, the man then attempted to push his way inside. This caused her to slip away into the break room, seeking a place to conceal herself. In under 60 minutes, the man who had been waiting outside became a meal for the zombies, and soon he joined their ranks as one of them. In that moment, the realization struck the hero. The zombie he had just defeated was likely the same man from earlier. Shifting the conversation, he inquires whether she carries any weapons. She revealed a wooden spear to him, catching his attention because it closely resembled the weapon Sung carried. Curious, he wondered aloud if it had once been a mop. She nodded, explaining that she had used a box cutter to whittle the end to a point, transforming the ordinary object into an unexpectedly effective weapon. The protagonist's eyes catch the sight of dried blood staining the tip, prompting her to speculate whether she might have already slain a zombie. However, the realization soon dawns on her that such an act would have been extremely dangerous. The situation demanded even more from someone of her abilities, making the threat feel nearly overwhelming. While continued to explain the specifics of her spear, the protagonist watched her intently, his expression grave and focused. He had already come to believe that women faced serious disadvantages in a world like this. While he recognized that zombies were a threat, he understood that the greater risk often came from people who failed to notice what was happening around them. Having exhausted all other options, the hero finally makes the choice to depart. The sudden news causes the girl to panic, prompting her to cling tightly to his hand. Uncertain, she asks if he truly intends to leave, but he offers an apology and explains that he must go. Her fear intensified, and she pleaded with him, admitting that she doubted her ability to make it on her own. He quickly his hand and offered another apology, yet she tightened her fist and almost without thinking, mentioned her past experience with fencing. He felt a wave of confusion wash over him, yet she remained adamant in her claim. She raises the blood-stained spear, her confidence clear, and claims responsibility for defeating the zombies on the 6th floor. She turns to confront him directly, insisting that abandoning her is a decision he will come to regret. He stood frozen, unable to find any words, while she hurried to take action. She proudly recalled her achievement of winning a silver medal at the national festival, and hearing this, suddenly sparked a noticeable change in his demeanor. He grasped her hand in his, signaling his agreement to join forces with her. Without delay, he passes her the backpack, now filled with all the items he had gathered before. Working as a team, they combed through every corner of the room while he instructed her to gather spare batteries. Uncertain, she hesitated and wondered aloud whether the power had already been fixed. He begins to describe in a relaxed manner, and the mention of it instantly brightens her mood, making her eyes sparkle with the same excitement a child feels when receiving sweets. The boy wondered aloud about the number of zombies she had dealt with herself. She responds with confidence, explaining that there had been 8 in total before he defeated one of them. Immediately afterward, she announces with excitement that she has located the batteries, while he remains frozen in disbelief, amazed that she was able to defeat 8 zombies on her own. After gathering all of their belongings, she wondered aloud if it was time for them to leave, but he stopped her, asking her to wait just a little longer. He squints, spotting unusual markings etched across the door. He wonders aloud about what she is holding, mentioned that the man from before repeatedly attempted to force it open, but she couldn't identify the tool he used. After taking a closer look around, the protagonist notices something glimmering beneath a pile of scattered sheets. He grabbed the object eagerly, his eyes lighting up, as the nerdy girl explained in a relaxed tone that it was just a measuring caliper. He experiences a surge of happiness upon discovering a solid metal tool, knowing it won't break as easily as the golf clubs had. Eagerly, he hefts it in his hands to gauge its weight. He quietly remarked to himself that the object seemed too short to function well as a real weapon, while his coworker responded with a confident smile, assuring him that she had already come up with a reliable fix for the problem. Picked up the caliper and improvised a creative solution, using its durability and length to her advantage. She fastened the solid metal instrument firmly to the tip of her reliable weapon. One end now featured a keen blade, while the opposite side carried the weighty caliper. This new combination hand transformed her tool into an effective double-edged weapon, capable of piercing like a spear and smashing with the force of the caliber. It was an ideal invention for her needs. Ah felt a surge of satisfaction as she admired her own ingenuity. Her actions were already proving that Song Jin Song's choice to include her was a wise one. She began to realize that having more companions might not lead to more conflicts after all. Working together as part of a team had the potential to achieve remarkable results. Once they finished, the two of them went through their supplies to see what they had. Their food stocks turned out to be almost equal, which meant they wouldn't need to be concerned about running out anytime soon. Inside Ah's belongings, a frying pan could be found. On the very day the world began to fall apart, she carried this item herself into the office. She needed to return it to the store where she had purchased it since the color was wrong. They realized that the pan could be used to melt snow and provide them with much-needed water. She looked away in embarrassment, unwilling to meet anyone's eyes, since she had repurposed that pan for something else entirely. The handle felt somewhat slick to the touch, hinting that it had recently served a different function, though its exact use remained unclear. She shifted the conversation and inquired about how had discovered her location. It seemed as though he had sensed someone was in the break room even before Ah revealed herself. He admitted that the information had come from a source in the building opposite. Someone had drawn his eye by flashing a light, then left a message suggesting they worked together. He displayed the photo of the note to Ah, causing her to shrink back in surprise. While seemed more trusting, Ah regarded the message with clear doubt. Looking back, it was clear that teaming up with unfamiliar people would always involve many dangers and unexpected challenges. His decision to team up with him stemmed from their history together before the world fell apart. In a time when trust was rare, she clung to the familiarity of someone she already knew. It was especially true for a woman like her. She couldn't simply partner with anyone she met. This made perfect sense. Aware of her concerns, Song chose not to pursue joining the group from the other building. Ah felt relieved that her thoughts had finally been heard. Shifting the conversation, she revealed her suspicion that the notorious manager could have survived after all. She couldn't help but think that the tough boss truly was hard to take down. She suspected that he could be hiding somewhere on a different floor. Although he had been stranded with her on the 6th floor at first, he had eventually found a way to leave. While secured herself inside the break room, the pig remained confined to the bathroom. He called out desperately for assistance, yet she stood motionless, paralyzed by terror, unable to respond. After what felt like an eternity, she finally managed to unlock the door, only to discover that the manager had already vanished. It seemed likely that he had departed sometime during the second night. Ever since that moment, methodically inspected the 4th, 2nd, and 1st floors, gathering a fair amount of loot along the way. She reasoned that if the manager was still alive and hadn't relocated, he was likely hiding out either on the 3rd or the 5th floor. As the darkness thickened, Ah, to a secluded spot, braced herself against the chill and eventually drifted into sleep. Song Jin Song worried that if the nearby survivors managed to find manager, they might join forces with the overweight man. Together, their combined group could become powerful enough to endanger both him and Ah. As his mind began to race toward the bleakest possibilities, forced himself to dismiss those unpredictable worries and tried to regain control over his thoughts. Trying to lift his spirits, he glanced at his steadily increasing number of coins. At this moment, he realized he had enough to buy an additional warm item for winter. At that moment, a winter hat would have been perfect. However, just as he was about to let his impulse take over and press the purchase button, thoughts of Ah's battered feet raced through his mind. While the world was ending, his brother seemed oddly preoccupied with her injuries. He realized she could easily get frostbite out here. If the pain became unbearable for her, she'd be unable to go any farther. Just another burden they would have to carry. Providing her with a pair of sturdy, comfortable boots seemed like the most sensible decision. While his girlfriend slept, he quietly searched for a pair of boots to surprise her. Just as he was about to follow through, he hesitated and shut the shop window. Frustration bubbled inside him as he berated himself, feeling guilty for being so self-centered, unwilling to part with just 3 coins to help a friend, and caring only about his own convenience. He buried his feelings of guilt, convincing himself that there was no need to rush into moving, allowing him to postpone making a choice for the time being. As dawn arrived, he found already awake, her attention fixed on her phone with excitement. Curious, he inquired whether her phone still had enough battery power. She hadn't expected it and was taken by surprise. During the night, they recharged the battery discovered the previous day and kept another one on hand just in case of an emergency. She noticed her phone's battery was running low. She mentioned that the company had recently placed a solar-powered generator on the rooftop. He was unaware that such a thing existed, so he never thought to look on the top floor. Ah had a short stint overseeing a support initiative connected to a small or medium-sized business. bonus. She learned that the entire system had been put in place, but a flaw was discovered before it could be released for sale, leading to the suspension of the project. She was unsure about the specifics of the alleged defect, but she felt confident it hadn't posed any serious safety risk. Although the solar power system was only a prototype, it was expected to be helpful. Having managed the project for a short period, she possessed the necessary knowledge to operate it. Seeing the possibility of gaining a valuable resource, eagerly accepted the chance to explore it. Their ascent up the staircase was uneventful until they arrived at the door leading to the rooftop. There, a thick layer of snow blocked their path, and they were forced to combine their efforts to shove the heavy door open. Naturally, the rooftop had transformed into a freezing, snow-covered wasteland. The group spun on their heels, their eyes tracing the outline of the tallest part of the office building. At that lofty spot, the secret to boundless energy waited to be discovered. Scanned his surroundings, and eventually spotted the ladder secured to the wall. He reached up and attempted to tug it downward, but the object remained lodged in place, unmoving and iced over. The lowest rung of the ladder sat at an unusual height, making it challenging for anyone to reach and climb onto it. Ah, showing courage, stepped forward and offered to be the first to climb, then requested help to get a lift up. Fortunately, the platform stood at a manageable height, making it possible to climb up with a strong, assisted leap. Perhaps her graceful and precise movements could be traced back to her past as a celebrated athlete. Anae brushed her hands across the platform, doing her best to clear away the thick layers of snow. At last, the pillowy layer parted just enough to uncover the hidden solar panels beneath. With enthusiasm shining in her eyes, she shared the news with her new partner. Since the panels were not very large, she found it possible to disassemble them and pass them down. After spending several minutes making adjustments, she managed to fasten the first section, and then, with help, gently removed it. The group carried out the seamless routine 3 additional times. As the day drew to a close, the group departed from the rooftop, carrying with them 4 solar panels that might prove to be an essential asset. The mission proved to be challenging and tiring, yet through their combined efforts, the group managed to succeed. As Ah had suggested, setting up the device turned out to be incredibly simple. She managed to complete the installation in only a matter of minutes. The panels would work better outdoors, yet returning them to a snow-covered field wasn't an option. The constant cover of thick, dark clouds would prevent much sunlight from reaching them, making the panels far less efficient. She recalled that on a clear, sunny day, the phone could gain around half its battery from solar charging. But with the sun hidden behind clouds now, that seemed unlikely. They decided it would be worthwhile to assess how their new panels measured up against the latest standards. The phone remained connected to its charger throughout the whole day. The device managed to provide just 8% battery power. Reaching a full charge would require over 12 days, which proved to be highly inefficient. Ah no longer showed any trace of the excitement she had felt just the day before. Despite all their hard work and physical exhaustion, their efforts only managed to charge the battery by 8%. Gaze lingered on her trembling, battered feet, recognizing his own struggles reflected in her condition. Although they had anticipated a disappointing outcome, actually seeing their fears confirmed left them feeling even more discouraged. Managed to find a silver lining as a new realization dawned on him. He thought he might have found the perfect spot for them if they ever chose to step outside the company headquarters. The group wouldn't need to travel a long distance. A logistics warehouse owned by the company stood close by. Inside, they could possibly discover food and important supplies to help them get by. Reaching their destination posed a significant challenge. Although obtaining a car seemed possible, traveling on the slick, frozen roads without the assistance of a GPS could make the journey extremely difficult. They considered using their phones to sketch out a map on paper as a possible solution. Ona confidently told him there was no need for a map, since the warehouse was close to her home. She frequently walks past that spot during her strolls. Each new day spent in her company reinforced just how smart it had been to join forces with her. With a companion by her side and a clear mission ahead, Ah found herself filled with renewed energy. Despite lacking expertise, the girl never shied away from challenging work. Even with injured feet, she managed her share of the responsibilities. At no point did she show any envy toward his winter boots. After considering everything, he reached a decision. Although it seemed like a strange thing to ask, he inquired about how big her feet were. He fabricated a tale, claiming he had spotted a pair of boots at another location earlier that day. Upon hearing those words, a bright expression spread across her face, and despite noticing several obvious flaws in the explanation, she eagerly responded. She had willingly offered to accompany him on the trip to collect the boots, hurried over to the door, and instructed her not to move. He knew he had to keep his unusual powers hidden from her for now. A short while later, he returned carrying a fashionable pair of winter boots, which turned out to be a perfect fit for Ah. After presenting her with the priceless present, the system that a party had been created successfully, marking a significant change. It then clarified that any coins earned by members of the group would be instantly deposited into his account. It seemed that expanding the group could lead to greater advantages. Offering shop items to fellow survivors might be the key to making it happen. As he he drifted into his own thoughts, Ah expressed her sincere gratitude to him for the comfortable boots. He became so absorbed in imagining the system's possible features that her words went completely unnoticed. When she noticed her hand pass effortlessly through the system, she felt compelled to shift her position. The sudden interruption brought him back to reality. Jin Song claimed he was only feeling lightheaded because he hadn't eaten, and the kind-hearted woman responded by sharing some food from her own supplies. Deciding to ignore the strange questions swirling in his head for now, he focused on the meal in front of him. The group returned to their usual place, eager to find something to eat. 14 days had slipped by since the outbreak began, and an endless blizzard swept over the land. 3 days had passed since their last drop of water, and now the dryness in their throats had become unbearable. With desperation mounting, they prepared to use a pan to melt snow for the first time, hoping it would bring relief. Ah assumed responsibility for gathering papers that could be used for burning. Due to the danger of causing a fire within the building, the group chose to start their fire on the rooftop instead. However, this choice carried its own dangers. If the fire was lit outside, the rising smoke could reveal their location to any raiders lurking in the area. Groups like that rarely travel alone. They tend to stick together. With society falling apart, it was inevitable that raiders would join forces, carrying out brutal acts without restraint. They would rob, kill, attack, and indulge in every cruelty that crossed their minds. Had hoped to wait before lighting a fire, wanting to avoid attracting dangerous attention. But now, there was simply no other option left. They used a lighter to set several office papers on fire. The objects were stacked neatly atop a metal drawer box. They realized it had been ages since they last experienced such comfort. For a brief moment, perhaps while sitting on a Jin Song experienced the soothing heat radiating from the fire, finding comfort in its gentle embrace. Snow was carefully placed onto her beloved pan. They successfully melted enough snow to drink, driven by a pressing need to rehydrate. Both of them sipped from the same cup of heated water. It had been ages since they last tasted clean water, and the thought of anything warm seemed like a distant memory. Ah's eyes filled with tears as an overwhelming sense of kindness washed over her. In a world that often felt harsh and unforgiving, she had nearly lost faith that such genuine warmth could still be found. They spent a warm, comforting night together, grateful that perseverance had led them to one another. Moments like these could inspire those feeling lost to keep going just a bit more. The night slipped by in silence, bringing the survivors to the 15th day of their struggle. Ah was the first to awaken, and softly urged to wake by giving him a gentle nudge. She spotted an unusual detail on the building across from them, and drew his attention to it by gesturing in its direction. A new message arrived from the person observing from across the way. The message explained that additional survivors were on their way to meet them. More specifically, those survivors were making the journey to unite with their group. Felt a sudden rush of alertness upon hearing the news. He realized the note had only been handed over moments earlier, and he knew that this development would undoubtedly make the situation more difficult. Ah noticed the group hurrying through the building, thinking they would likely arrive on her floor before long. She wondered if they had noticed the flames from the previous night. There was no way for her to know whether these people were friendly or simply scavengers looking for an opportunity. The possibility that they could be dangerous worried her. A group of men dressed in heavy winter gear and carrying blunt instruments emerged from the front of the building as they scanned their surroundings. At that moment, Anar and Jinsong chose to gather their belongings and leave their location. The neighbors had prepared wooden shields to protect themselves from the zombies wandering nearby. The group advanced with surprising speed and coordination, dealing with the undead in a highly methodical manner. They used noises to attract the mindless creatures. The figure separated each target from the group, dispatching them quickly and efficiently. The pair hurriedly completed their packing, but precious minutes had already slipped away. If things continued like this, the group would reach the office building in no more than 10 minutes, and certainly no later than 15. The neighbors had been thriving, but everything changed when they made a mistake. They ended up attracting more zombies than they could handle. Upon recognizing the error they had made, the group gathered their resolve and hurried ahead, sprinting toward the building. With a horde of zombies chasing closely behind them, a man carrying a heavy demolition mace broke through the glass, forcefully making his way inside.